Years ago, Lumintop coordinated with BLF, the Budget Light Forum, to release the BLF GT. This is a mega thrower with a huge reflector, single emitter, and it throws 1 million candela. It got nicknamed Giggles for obvious reasons. But then Lumintop came out with a series of smaller lights based on this design. They came out with the Mini and the Micro, and then eventually the Nano, this cute little guy that's the same shape and everything. Well, Lumintop's at it again, and they've released the new GT Nano Pro 3.0. And let's see what's a little different about it. Welcome back to Shul Lights. So the GT line, the BLF GT line, is heralded as a reflector thrower line. And the original GT Nano is the same kind of thing. It's a little tiny reflector with a tiny little emitter, an Osram in this case. But the new GT Nano 3.0 actually has a different kind of configuration. If you look at the original, it's got the reflector there, but the new GT Nano Pro 3.0 is 3 different emitters. So this is going for a flood pattern and maximum lumens as opposed to maximum candela or throw. So let's take a look at it today and see if it's the right light for you. The GT Nano Pro comes in this box, and it comes with a lanyard as well as a charging cable, because one of the features it has now, as opposed to the original, is it now has built-in USB-C charging. So the original was a little shorter, as you can see, but also has a smaller battery. If I take this off here, you'll see that it's got a little tiny little 80 milliamp hour battery. And honestly, that was the biggest problem with it. It was just, it doesn't last very long. However, on this one, they've extended the battery size. And if you know about the extended tube that was available for this little guy, it's somewhere in between that. So this one now boasts 300 milliamp hour, which is a welcome addition from the original 80, which is too small. But the original one also had this optional 10440 tube, so you could get about 300 milliamp hour that way, or 320 in the case of this vape cell. And I want to point out that this extended tube fits on both of the lights. So not only was it made for this original, but they've kept all the same threading. And so if you want to pull this off here, you have the ability to screw this one on and vice versa. Also note that this little tiny guy will fit on that one as well if you want to go back to the smallest form factor possible. Unlike the original GT Nano, this new GT Nano Pro, I should say, has a charge port on the opposite side of the button, which has a USB-C charge port. That is a welcome addition for sure, because the original Nano required a separate little white charger cap that you had to put on the tube. It was kind of cumbersome. I didn't love it. And I was always trying to store that little cap, and you could never find it when you needed it. So I'm going to say this right now. I like reflectors. Reflectors are my jam. So when I opened up the new Pro and saw it was a triple, I was a little like, meh, meh, meh. But I'm glad I have this light now, and it's going to sit with the rest of my GTs on the shelf because it solves the problem of charging these little batteries. I'm going to use this as a charging host, if nothing else. So this light's around $20 on the website. Let's take a look. There you go. This is on Banggood.com. Look in my description for the link for this light, as well as a coupon code for a little bit off. But you can see it's about 22 bucks. And so for 22 bucks, not only am I getting a unique beam pattern, and we'll show that in a moment, but it's cool that it's got the charging, and the fact that it's compatible with all the tubes, that's a plus. I can charge all these batteries now. Let's take a quick look at the UI, which is not Narsil or Enduril. So if you were used to the interface that is on the original GT Nano, which was Narsil, it's similar, but it's its own thing. So notice that there is a kind of a metal button here. I think it's metal. Feels metal to me. And there is a green light in here that's hard to see under my studio lights, but this green light will turn red when the battery needs charging. That green light can be turned on and off. It's a locator light as well as the battery level. If you want to turn it off, I believe it's 6 clicks. I'll try in a second here. But let's take a look at the UI really quickly. It's 1 click for on. It gets brighter when it's on. 1 click for off, okay? When it's on, you press and hold to cycle through the different modes. And there's a low, medium, high, low, medium, high. When you turn it off, you press and hold, you go to a moonlight. So there's a moonlight and a double tap for turbo at any time. So tap, tap, and there's your turbo. So that double tap is turbo. Triple tap would be strobe. Quadruple tap puts you in momentary mode. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, it flashes once for confirmation. And now when I tap, I can do Morse code or signaling, okay? Notice that if I click 4 times in rapid succession, it'll leave momentary, unlike Endural, which you'd have to like mechanically lock out and lock back on. I believe 6 taps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you go. Yep, indeed. Let me see if I can get this on camera. The side light is now off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the side light is now on. It's hard to see, but you can see a little bit of green in there. This light can also be mechanically locked out by just unscrewing it maybe 1/8 of a turn. You can see it now won't operate. And if I reconnect it, it flashes once for confirmation and now it operates again. Let's take a look at the emitters, which run cool white here. And at low, you got about 6,000 and just slightly over delta UV. And let's go to high. And we've got about 6,000 still and just over. So it's a pretty consistent emitter throughout the range. Even though the GT Nano Pro 3.0 is an incredibly small light, its build is over 1,600 lumens due to its triple emitter design. I'm going to turn it on to Moonlight, and you can see that Moonlight is measuring as just about a lumen, which is awesome. Let's turn it on at low. We got 115 lumens. Go up to medium. We got about 600 lumens, or 550 lumens. And then high is about 1,200 lumens. That's an insane amount of output for a light this small. Now let's do a turbo runtime test and see how it fares. I imagine it's going to peak really high and go down really quickly due to its small thermal mass, but let's take a look. All right, here we go. Double tap. Oh yeah, look at that. We had hit about 2,000 lumens at startup. We're still over the 1,600 rated about 10 seconds in. It is dropping quickly, of course, which totally makes sense because as emitters heat up, they're going to be able to put out less lumens due to the way diodes work. When they heat up, they get less efficient. We got about 10 seconds left on this 30-second runtime here. And the light is getting quite toasty to my fingers. And we're coming up on 30 seconds right now. Still 1,400 lumens, very respectable. I just saw a slight step down. This thing's holding in there. It's getting really hot to touch, to be honest. Okay, there we go. So it just bailed out, and I'm assuming it hit probably 60 or 65 degrees internally, and then it just, bailed out because it doesn't want to melt itself down. But that's a huge amount of output for a light so small. That's actually really respectable. If you're going to compare the new Nano to the original Nano, they're completely different looking lights as far as the beam shape. Here's the original Nano, and you can see what a thrower it is. It's kind of like a laser beam here with almost no spill and all hotspot. Now, the new Nano Pro 3.0 is very floody by comparison. You can see it's a big floody light here. So again, if you're expecting the original Nano's reflector and beam shape, it's going to be an unwelcome surprise. But if you know what you're getting and you're looking for maximum lumens, this one is absolutely trouncing the original as far as light output. All right, for beam shots, I'm going to start in my backyard where it's pretty close. We're only about 10 meters apart from any side. And I'm going to start with the GT Nano, the original one with the reflector. There you can see it on camera. This is at the lowest mode right now, and I can barely see it on my back wall. I'm going to ramp up because it uses Narsil. So it's got a ramping UI, and that's about halfway. And then let's double tap, and there's turbo on the old GT Nano. Now let's do the GT Nano with the triple. And so that is low. That's not moonlight, but that's low. Let's go to medium. Let's go to high. And then finally double tap, and that is turbo. You can see how much floodier the shape is of the new GT Nano Pro 3. Let's go back to the original. There is the beam on the old one, and again, here's the new one. It's got the floody triple. Let's take it out in front where we got more range. All right, let's get some beam shots of the original GT Nano here with the reflector and the new GT Nano Pro V3 with the triple. So let's go to a low ramp on the GT Nano original, and you can see at the 20-meter tree there, it's doing all right, but let's go ahead and double tap, and you can see that it's quite a thrower. It hits that second tree right there, which is 55 meters, and it looks like I'm making it all the way to the palm trees in the back there. Now, did you see that flashing for a second there? That is because the battery here, which is fully charged, just stepped down because it's only 80 milliamp hours, and I've used it during the tests we just saw. Now let's switch to the GT Nano Pro, and I'll double tap for turbo, and you can see how much floodier this light is. Now, I don't think the light is making it all the way to the palm trees at 150 meters in the back there, but man, this thing puts out a ton of lumens compared to the original thrower version, which does go farther, but it is like a pencil beam, whereas here, it just washes everything with lumens. Considering that the GT line was always a thrower slash reflector line, it was very surprising to me when I opened up the package and saw that it was a triple. But that's not to say that it's unwelcome. As I said, if I want a floody light, this is just a completely different light than the original Nano. However, the inclusion of the charging is a welcome addition because, as I said, the old charging scenario where you had this little white plastic cap you had to thread on to the tube seemed not only cumbersome, but I could never find that little white plastic cap when I wanted to charge. So having it all in the light is definitely awesome. And as I say, even though I'm kind of a reflector guy and I like a lot of candela, I will also state that this is going to have a spot on my shelf just for the sake that it is the same threading as the original Nano, and so now I can charge all my batteries in it with its USB-C. So go check this out on Banggood. The link is in the description, and as I said, there's a coupon code off for a little bit more. And thanks for watching my review, and I'll see you in the next review.